Hey, Joel here. Thank you for downloading this checklist. I think it's going to be really useful for you. This was made for singer-songwriters who want to know how to record properly at home. So if that's you, you are in the right place. This was made during the pandemic by me as a producer trying to help artists who were recording at home, who were doing it for the first time, who didn't know how to record. So this is a checklist with all the important technical bits of information to go through so that you know you're recording at a professional level. Let's jump in. So here is the checklist. Let's go through. There are 3 sections. The first one is on setting up your DAW. The second one is on the actual recording, and the third is on exporting, so you can share those files. Now, before we jump right in, every DAW is going to be a little bit different the way it treats these settings. No 2 pieces of software are identical, so the menus and the settings and the menu bars are going to be a little bit different for every DAW. But these are the principles I want you to understand. They're more important than the actual settings. I want you to understand why you're changing these settings and why they exist. That will make you a better recorder, better audio engineer. So the first thing to set up is the sample rate and bit depth. This is the most important, most basic piece to set up in your DAW. You want a sample rate of 48 kilohertz and 24 bits for the bit depth. This is standard now in audio for things like Spotify, and also for if you get your music onto film or TV. That's what they're going to want to see for the sample rate and bit depth. Now, these next 2 settings go hand in hand. You want to enter the time signature and tempo, as well as create a click track. So if you're recording your guitar and voice, and you don't want to record both those parts at the same time, and you want some separation, maybe you record the guitar part first, and you do that to a click track, and then you overdub your vocal part, for example. You'll need a click track for that. Also, if you're collaborating with a producer or other musicians, it's going to make it so much easier if your recording is in time. Now, these next 2 settings have to do with monitoring your recording. So if you have direct monitoring on your interface, and every interface has this, you will be able to hear your voice through your microphone directly through the hardware of your interface without any delay. If you have software monitoring turned on in your DAW, that means the signal is going through your interface, into your computer, out of your computer, into your interface, and back into your headphones. And that loop creates what's called latency. It's a little bit of a delay, and it can be uncomfortable to record to. So make sure that direct monitoring is turned on your interface, and software monitoring is turned off in your DAW. And those are 2 settings you can easily search for, whatever your DAW is. Next, we're going to move to the actual recording checklist. So when you were recording, I want you to record between -18 and -12 decibels. That is the optimal recording level for the preamps in your interface, for the analog digital converters in your interface, and for any of the processing plugins to come. That's the sweet spot. So when you're recording, try and look on your DAW for a level, like a fader, and there should be some kind of numerical output where it's going to say -20, -6, whatever it is. And you want an average of around -18 and -12. If it goes a little bit louder occasionally, not a big deal, but you don't want it to be clipping, which would be over 0. So look out for that. Next, make sure you're leaving a little bit of space before you actually start recording. So I like to say leave 2 bars of click track. This will give you some time to kind of like just get ready for the song. You hear the tempo a couple times, you get in the groove, and then you start playing. It also allows your audio engineer that you're working with or collaborator just to assess the room tone, to make sure there's not too much noise, to hear just what it sounds like without any instruments or voices recording there. As far as the actual recording goes, I encourage artists to record a few takes, but don't overdo it. If you're finding you're recording more than 4 takes, it's time to shut off the computer for a minute and just practice the part and make sure you're really comfortable. when you go to sit down to record, you want to make sure you're in a good space and you're kind of ready to go. And you're not worrying about the technical things so much. You can execute the performance. You feel comfortable. And so once you're in that space, you're able to elevate beyond a technical performance, and it's more about style and emotion, all the good stuff. So record 4 good takes. And if you're working with a producer, they can switch between those takes to get a different delivery. But don't be recording like 10 or more takes. That's so discouraging. It's not fun. Nobody likes that. And it's like a mess to receive. So the last item here is to make a comp track. That's a composite track. So what that means is taking, say, you recorded those 4 takes. Say you like the verse from this part, the chorus from this take, the bridge from this take. You can put all those takes together, choose the best sections, and make the perfect edit of your performance. This is a little bit more of an advanced skill, slightly more advanced skill, but you can easily search how to do this once you're kind of comfortable with this other stuff. If it's too much, you might want to work with a producer or audio engineer to help you with this. So the last part of this checklist deals with the actual rendering and the exporting of your files. So this is something to really get right. The first thing on the list here is naming. So name your files, name your tracks, part name, say vocals, underscore, song name, my song. That will mean when you go to export your files, your collaborators will see the part name first and then the song name in the file. And the reason that's useful is DAWs often don't have a huge text box for files. So if you did the song name first, they're just going to see a bunch of files that say the song name. Instead, put the part name first. That's the important thing for the collaborators to know, and it'll be really easy to read and figure out. Next, render your files from 0. So that means from the very, very, very beginning of the file, of the song rather. So that's bar 1, beat 1. If you don't do that, your files will not line up and you'll have problems later. You also want to export files individually. We're not making a mix here. When you're collaborating with a producer or a mixing engineer, you want them to have your individual recordings, not the mix. Similarly, those files need to be mono rather than stereo. So mono means 1 track, stereo is 2, where there's left and right. If you are recording a voice with 1 microphone, or if you're recording a guitar with one microphone, there is no need for those to be stereo. They should be mono. If you have a synth part that has stereo information, absolutely that should be a stereo track. So just figure out which tracks are mono and which tracks are stereo and send them appropriately. You also want to export your tracks as dry. That means no processing. No EQ, no compression, no delay, no reverb, etc. Those plugins are super fun to do, but if you are recording and you are collaborating with a producer or mixing engineer, they're going to want to have dry files. Now, you can also send your wet file so they can reference or potentially use that file, especially if it's like a really important reverb that you can't go without. Send those as well, but please also send your files dry. You're going to also want to export as 24-bit 48 kilohertz wave files, the same as you recorded. This should be a setting in your render settings. Look for that and change it to 2448. Finally, and this is a really important one, please don't attach wave files or MP3 files to an email. Instead, upload them to Dropbox or Google Drive, or if you're working with me, I use FilePass that makes for really easy collaboration and revisions. A few parting tips for you. So if you can, and if you have the space in your home or in your apartment, set up a little studio space for yourself where your mic, your interface, your computer, it's all set up, it's ready to go, so that when you have an idea, when you're inspired, you're not dealing with all this technical stuff. You can just sit down and be like, okay, I'm ready to record my song. Let's go. It's easy. It's set up. You have your space. It feels good. I can't recommend that enough. Now, if you're also recording the same instruments over and over again, for example, say you play piano and you play guitar and you sing, have that set up as a template in your DAW. So you can actually, in your DAW, set all the tracks. So say you have your vocal track and your guitar track and your piano track, you have all the routing and inputs already set up. Maybe you have reverbs, you could have all sorts of things set up in this template so that when you are ready to go, you're not creating new tracks, you just open this template and you're ready to go. There is a lot to learn here. There's a lot of information. So I recommend you do this often. And if you do, I see this as being an integral part of your creative process. It's incredibly fun. It's incredibly rewarding to know how to record yourself, and you just get better at it. So do it often. So the last page here is the part that you can actually print out. This is the actual checklist. This is the part that you can have taped up on your desk. If you want to have the explanation, by all means, you can print the earlier bits too, but this is what I had intended to have as your master checklist to go through. Finally, all this information is a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to do, and it's quite removed from the normal creative process that you might be used to as a songwriter. If you think you would benefit from a little more help and support, you'd have my help, you'd have the support of the community. I run a course called the Studio Songwriter. It's held over Zoom. It's super fun. It's super collaborative. You'll share your songs. We'll talk about the songwriting process. We'll talk about pre-production. Then we go into actual recording. I have all the recommendations for the gear. We go into this stuff, but much greater depth. And at the end, you emerge with a killer sounding, polished professional track of one of your original songs. I love teaching this course. It's a great community. If you think you'd benefit from that, I encourage you to sign up for the wait list at thestudiosongwriter.com. Okay, thank you once again for downloading this checklist. I hope it's really helpful. Let me know if it was, and I'll talk to you soon.